No judgments over here. If you want to talk about this, that, low childhood traumas, whatever, let's discuss it, because I think that it's important for the Latinx community to also feel like they have a place where they can go to and listen to us, you know? Like, Absolutely. You're not alone now. We're here. We get it. We're from the same, you know what I'm saying? I feel you.
What up? I'm Dramos, and this is the recap. Of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. Very special guest hopping on the show in just a little bit. She has been on the show before. One of my favorite people to just break down stories with, because she does not hold back. Amara La Negra will be joining us today in just a little bit to help us break down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. Before she hops on, though, man, you already know what time it is. Let's get into some of the BS from this last week. Now, on today's episode of Rich People Who Apparently Are Running Out of Ways to Spend Their Money, this last week we saw Jeff Bezos and his Blue Origin space shuttle successfully make their first trip into space. And listen, while I have to admit, like, my inner child is a bit enamored by the idea of regular people like you and I getting to go into space, my adult side can't help but quickly put that inner child in timeout, as I refuse to celebrate a tax loophole-loving billionaire like Jeff Bezos. Now, there are a number of things I can hate on here, but I only have a limited time here on the show, so I'm just going to break down a couple of my favorite moments from this whole experience that we just saw, okay? So let's first start off with the space shuttle itself. Like, not one of the yes men that Bezos has around him at all times had the guts to pull him aside and just be like, hey, boss, don't you think this rocket ship looks a bit too much like a penis? Like that rocket ship, it looked like something out of like an HBO After Dark softcore porno that involves like astronauts who come into contact with sexy aliens who need to mate with humans in order to save their race. And HBO, just a heads up, if I somehow randomly am scrolling late night on TV on HBO and just happen to land on one of these types of pictures, if I discover that you used my plot for one of your movies, you will be hearing from my attorney. But also, I'm open to selling you the idea. So just reach out to me. We can make something happen. I think it's a great plot. Moving on. Now, also, we have the subject of the human meme that is Jeff Bezos himself. Like, why the hell was he wearing a cowboy hat? Like, I don't even have to make an actual joke here. The damn cowboy hat is better than any punchline I could ever write. It's just like, why? You know, but sadly, when we look at this whole experience, the penis-shaped rocket ship and that grown man wearing a cowboy hat in space, those weren't even like the most ridiculous part of this whole thing. No, the craziest part of all of this is what Jeff Bezos said after he successfully landed back on Earth. Let's hear it.
And then I want to thank every Amazon employee and every Amazon customer, because you guys paid for all of this. So seriously, for every Amazon customer out there and every Amazon employee, thank you from the bottom of my heart very much.
What the? How about you read the room a little, Jeff? Your company is under constant scrutiny for taking advantage of workers, and you have the nerve to tell them they paid for this nonsense? By the way, this is classic big corporate company trying to make their employees feel good with some sort of tone-deaf thank you. Like, it's like when big companies send you an email saying stuff like, guys, we really crushed it last quarter. You know, we've already doubled our sales from this point last year. And it's all because of your hard work. And as an employee, you're sitting there like, well, if the company is making more money than it did last year, and it's all because of me, how come my check is staying exactly the same? Yeah, something doesn't seem to add up there with our corporate buddies, right? But it's funny because like the corporate heads of these companies, like they have to be trolling us and their employees, right? Because there's no way that someone could be this tone deaf, right? I mean, like corporations, they always are trying to find like some sort of dumb initiative to like raise morale, right? Like, here's a thought. How about instead of wacky tie day at the office, how about you just pay your employees a fair and livable wage with a comprehensive benefits package? Pretty sure that would like quickly raise morale around the office, right? But what do I know? I'm just a guy who talks on TV. So what do I know, right? But let's be specific when it comes to actual Amazon employees, right? The very ones that Jeff Bezos thanked for his $5.5 billion ego stroke into space. How about Patty Hernandez, who is a 23-year-old Amazon warehouse worker in California who suffered a miscarriage after her manager and HR person refused to honor her request for lighter duty after she made them aware that she was pregnant and even provided a doctor's note saying she should not be lifting anything over 20 pounds. But did Amazon care? Of course not. There's no time for lighter duties. They have a rocket ship to pay for, duh. You see, while our buddy Jeff is out gallivanting off into space with his ridiculous cowboy hat, just a stupid cowboy hat, the very employees that he is sitting up there so proudly claiming paid for that trip, yes, those same employees are having to make the decision between paying their rent and putting the lives of themselves and their unborn child at risk. And listen, I understand like the argument on the other side, right? Like I really do. I'm sure Jeff Bezos, he worked hard for his money, right? And that's what people say. So why would any of us have a say in how he spends it? I get that. And to a degree, you are right. But I also refuse to celebrate predatory people like him who don't pay their fair share in this country and are more than okay with the middle class flipping the bill for them and doing all of this, right? Doing all of this while also taking advantage of the very people who are helping him become richer and richer by the day just because he can. Now, I don't have all the answers here, and I will never pretend to have all the answers. But what I do know is something needs to change because this is not the America I signed up for. Now, with that said, definitely going to lighten up the mood just a little bit with this week's guest, man. All right, so hopping on to help me tackle some of the other bigger headlines from this last week. She is a multi-talented artist and entrepreneur. Her new podcast, Exactly Amara, is available everywhere you find podcasts. Amara La Negra, how we feeling?
Woo-hoo! I am super excited, super happy. I'm here in the Caribbean. I am in Santo Domingo putting in that work because I have so many things going on my plate right now, but everything is a blessing. And I'm just so excited to tell you about my new podcast.
Yes, I love it. I'm excited. I mean, we're family now. We're both on the My Cultura Podcast Network, so we'll definitely get into all that. Before we do that, though, if it's cool with you, I want to get your take on a couple, trending stories that are happening right now.
Oh God, darling,
Yes.
So tell me all about it. Let's. What's the tea?
Okay. So we're gonna start in a happy place first. Okay. All right. So I don't know if you saw this, but it's been making its rounds. The comedian Michael Blackson, he proposed to his girl on The Breakfast Club. This happened this last week. So for you, I know some women would cringe at something like this, such a public display and like almost maybe impersonal type of setting. For you, would you be okay with your significant other potentially proposing to you in a situation like this?
I honestly, because first of all, I am a Libra, so shout out to all my Libra gang. So I am very, very romantic, and I believe in the fairy tale somewhat. So I would have definitely, personally would have loved for him to do something a little bit more intimate, or maybe not even intimate, but more romantic, rather better. Even if we were going to do it at the Breakfast Club, bring me some petals and some flowers and make your production. But at the same time, every person, has a different bond and a different type of relationship, and maybe they're not into being all extra romantic. And It was more like, you know what? I love you. You love me. Boom. Let's just do it down. That's it. You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, at least they're happy. And that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That is true. I mean, but like, so you're romantic. I mean, does it, when we talk about romanticism though, I mean, there are certain things like, oh, something homemade is nice. Some people like more of an extraordinary experience. What
I'm
type
very
of woman
extravagant. I want throw yourself off of, throw yourself.
You're good.
Throw yourself off a helicopter.
Wow.
Do something. Give me a production. This is a once in a lifetime moment and I'm supposed to be the love of your life. So what are you doing?
This is a lot of pressure you're putting on whoever that potential man is.
It is. But how about this?
Okay.
You don't have to do so much. Just show me that you put effort behind it.
Okay.
Just show me that there was effort. Like me knowing who you are, I'll know like, damn, they really tried. Like that was a lot of work for him. I would appreciate that.
I got you. Okay. So, I mean, but obviously it's tough because you might have some men that aren't quite on your pay grade, you know what I'm saying, for the extravagance that you're expecting. So do you think you wouldn't be able to date a man that makes less than you?
To be honest, most of the men that I date make less than me.
Ooh.
That's kind of weird.
I don't know if that's shade or if that's like,
no, I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah.
It's a good and it's a bad thing. It's just that personally, I just like people for who they are. Like if I meet you and we have a vibe and it's not about how much money I got or what I can afford. It's just that we click. Like there's chemistry, boom. You know, and I'm the type of woman that because of my mom, I believe that once you're with a man, you should help him level up. We should help each other level up. But I feel prideful when I'm like, I did that. Like I helped Bay. I cleaned him up. I hooked him up. Like I did that. So, you know, it's nice to date people that are financially well off. I mean, hey. We're looking at a couple of examples right now on social media that are popping with that, but it's nice to date someone that has it. But if you don't have it, I think that shouldn't be a reason why not to date that person.
No, I think that's a beautiful perspective because I mean, even for me, I grew up at first. My father was like the breadwinner, and then my mom like got a great promotion, and she ended up being the one that was a breadwinner. But like they just always supported each other in their movements. You know what I mean? So like to me, that's like real love. That's just a beautiful thing to kind of see. You know.
Yeah, it is. You barely see that these days. And that's also because women have become more independent. They've become more liberal, which is a beautiful thing. You know, we're very empowered. But, you know, it's kind of hard to find that bond in relationships these days. Like, I don't even know. I was even changing topics real quick, but it's just like a bonus thought in my mind. I was even looking at the way that women now are deciding to like either not have any children or maybe just have that one child and that's it. And then like, you know, your bloodline kind of fades off. Back in the days, we used to have our great-great-grandparents. We used to have 14, 16 kids off one body. And that's why the families were big. But, you know, times have changed in every single aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And I think some for the good, because I also think even you talk about the Latin culture, the machismo, all that stuff, you know what I mean? When it came to men would be able to hang these different things over the woman's head. Like they would look to control her by having the money, you know what I mean? By controlling the wealth in the household. And it just led to so many different bad things generationally about abuse of women and all these different things. So, I mean, as much as it's like, I would love to have these big families again, at the same time, it's also good to see women so empowered, I think, too.
Yeah, of course. But I still feel that we can figure out ways, perhaps, how to have your cake and eat it too.
Okay.
But like I said, you know, kids are now more expensive than they used to be back then.
True.
Like everything has changed. So overall, I understand love has changed too. Relationships have changed. Finances have changed. Music has changed. Styles, everything. You know, it's part of life.
No, absolutely. All right. So let's talk about somebody who does have a lot of money, probably more money than we can even imagine at this point, Dr. Dre. He's up there, right? He's going through a divorce, and it was ruled this week that he's ordered to pay his wife $300,000 a month in spousal support. I'm curious your thoughts on this. Obviously, the internet is going crazy.
Mira, let me tell you something. Entonces se me va a salir my Spanish really quick. Wait a minute, wait a moment. Espera un momento. So here's how I feel about it. I feel that that's a lot of damn money, okay? Realistically, you know you don't need all that money.
Sure.
I think that there's some type of bitterness, there's some type of hate, there's some type of hurt, there's some type of everything. Because right now I feel like we can be very judgmental towards her. But at the end of the day, we really don't know what happened behind closed doors. How much does she really have to hold, you know, put up with, hold, whatever the case may have been? Why is she or wants so much vengeance? Something happened that caused, because no women turns like this out of nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you had given her 50,000 or whatever the case may have been a month, okay, cool. But for her to go to the point that she wanted to dry him off, you did something that was way too, you know what I'm saying? So I just feel like we really may not know all the true story, the back end of what may have happened. Now, is it a lot of money? I do think is a little bit, it's a lot very exaggerated. Did she help or participate in his growth? I don't know exactly the details. I'm sure that she was there being of a support system in some way, shape, or form. Therefore, she does deserve to have a certain amount. And she also had their children, to my understanding as well. So, yes, pero I think it's a lot, mama. Bring it down a notch.
Yeah. That's a lot. I mean, definitely, I'm sure he's kicking himself for not having a prenup, So,
and he's so lucky that them kids is already grown. Because if you again them 300,000 and child support, Papa, it would have been the end for you. Mira, is a wrap.
Well, what do you think? Like, do you want to have, if when you get married one day, if you want to, is a prenup like non-negotiable?
Yeah, no, we're getting a prenup. Unfortunately, because of the way the time and society is, we're getting a prenup for the best of you and for the best of me. And I actually have a friend she's married to a very well-known baseball player here in the Dominican Republic. They have a prenup, but their prenup is a little bit different. It states that after like 5 years or 6 years of marriage, then, she gets more benefits. It's almost like you have to prove yourself. And I'm willing to do that somewhat. Like, if we've been married together for like the past 6-7 years, besides whatever we were dating, and you've proven to be loyal and be good, all right, cool. I won't give you everything, but I'll be more flexible into like, okay, you deserve to be part of this.
Sure. I can't imagine how awkward that conversation has to be, though. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, where you think it's not awkward at all.
No. This is a negotiation, normal. If you love me and I love you, why do you care about what I have?
That's true. That is true.
And if you're like, oh, no, because of the love. No, because the love has nothing to do with the finances. Espérate. So, no.
I respect it for sure. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, I saw you post about this. So my last podcast was about social media, and I've seen you on social media kind of talking back at people who were saying that you were losing too much weight, like kind of throwing their own opinions into things. So I'm curious for you, I mean, how do you not allow social media to affect like your normal life? Because I mean, you're on like this whole journey right now of your fitness and all that stuff, and you have all these people critiquing you while you're doing it. How does this not seep into your regular life?
It did for 2 seconds. I'm not even going to lie to you.
Sure.
My whole life, I have suffered with this disorder of how I visually see myself and how I actually look to other people. There was a point in life where I hated my big butt and my big thighs because I wanted to be long, like Victoria's Secret models.
Right.
Then my body grew in and I was like, okay, well, you can't, you know what I'm saying? That's not how you're naturally built. Then from then I went from being overweight. I weighed 230 pounds at one point in my life. Then I dropped the weight by dancing, becoming more active. Then I became bulimic. For like 3 years, I was hospitalized on 2 occasions because I kept trying to fit into society standards of what beautiful it's supposed to be.
Sure.
And I just keep changing. But then recently, during the pandemic, you know how you don't realize how much weight you've gained to like one day? There's like that picture or that video or that
pair of pants you try to put on and you're like, damn, okay, this don't fit right.
Right. So it was that one time that I realized like I've gained a lot of weight. Then I realized details that I don't feel like I'm ready to talk about yet, but I do have some health issues that did also cause me to lose a lot of weight, which people can be very judgmental. And I'm like, dude, I'm over here trying to survive, and you're here worried about if I have a fat ass or if I'm sexy or not. So, I mean, I just feel like for my own health and for my own well-being, this is best for me. Sure. I was like, I'm already 215 pounds with no kids. Imagine when I get pregnant, I'm going to be like 400 pounds. I can't do that to myself. And I come from a family of diabetes, thyroids, high blood pressure, breast cancer, too much things. So I think that now I'm refocusing my energy more on my health, being a different version, a slimmer version of, who I am. And I still got my booty. All them people that were talking about, they get, oh, Amara got surgery. Where the booty at? Because if I would have done my butt, it would have still been there. It was all natural the whole time. So look.
I mean, it is interesting because you bring up like the problems in families with like diabetes runs in my family, you know what I mean? And things like that. But it's also like a lot of times in our households, it was like if you had a skinny kid, they would be critiqued like, you're too flaco. You know what I mean? Like they would be like, he has to eat more. He has to eat more, feed him. You know what I mean? So I think we grew up with so many complexes about our, you know, how we look, our bodies, our, you know, everything. Even for you, I mean, I know you've been so vocal about, you know, speaking on behalf of Afro-Latinas everywhere, just because you've dealt with so much of that, you know? So, man, it's crazy. And it's just funny how insensitive I think people can be on the internet, man. It's wild.
Yeah, for sure. So we criticize women when they get surgeries and we talk about, oh, your body is fake. But then we also criticize them if their body is natural. Oh, you need to get this done. You need to get that done. So it's like, you never can satisfy people. So therefore you have to satisfy yourself. And that's just what it is. No matter what you do, people are always going to criticize. And I came from those families too, that my mom was like, mientras más gordita, más bonita. Like the chunkier you are, ay, qué linda. Look at her fat cheeks and your face is like this big. So it's like, you're not even thinking about later on, you're creating an unhealthy habit that will be even more difficult for them to like, you know, fix later on in life. So, yeah.
All right. So, I mean, talking about your life, I mean, we got the podcast that just launched, exactly. Amara launched on iHeart's My Cultura podcast network. So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, what can people kind of expect to hear from you that they haven't heard from you before?
Well, to be honest, I think that it was just doing the transition from social media to my podcast. I think that I've always been very outspoken and I've always had a really big personality and everything else. And just being able to create a new fan base that listens to me through podcasts. And now I can really focus on certain topics that I want to touch bases on. Like, for example, my first one, we were talking about the Afro-Latino community. And I will continue to bring awareness to that topic and I will continue to talk about that. Now when I have like immigration attorneys, I'm now going to bring in a porn star. I have strippers. I have Dr. Miami is coming up on the next episode as well, talking about surgeries and, you know, body shaming and all these things. Like I want to touch different aspects and just the type of conversations I would have with my real friends, like about everything unfiltered, uncensored. My show is definitely not PG-13. We get real raunchy and nasty and it's the truth. That's what we really be talking about. So I just wanted to be able to do that and be like a judgment-free zone. Like no judgments over here. If you want to talk about this, that, childhood traumas, whatever, let's discuss it because I think that it's important for the Latinx community to also feel like they have a place where they can go to and listen to us, you know? Like, you're not alone now. We're here. We get it. We're from the same, you know what I'm saying? I feel you.
Absolutely. And I want to get into two things about the podcast. I like how you just mentioned raw, unfiltered, right? Do you have any fear, though? Because it's one thing to be on social media and in reality TV when, you know, not everything is captured, but on a podcast, you're really touching absolutely everything. That's the beauty of a podcast. You know, you can really deep dive into things the way you see fit. Are you a little nervous about maybe being so honest if you're potentially talking about family or if you're talking about a relationship, you know, because there's going to be some blowback, people getting their feelings sometimes?
You know what? I think that as long as I am honest and unapologetically myself about my experiences and my journey, there is nothing that anybody can tell me that's going to make me feel any type of way, because if you feel some type of way, that sounds like a personal problem. I feel just fine. So I'm going to tell you about me and my opinion. And I always make sure to say, this is my opinion. I'm not generalizing. I'm not telling you that this is how you need to feel. This is how I feel about this situation. Y el que no le guste que se jode y que se vaya pa'l... I'm sorry, you and your sensitive ass. Figure it out. So... Listen, I think people are very sensitive these days too.
Sure. No, I love that. All right. And the last thing I want to ask you, because I saw a clip you were talking about In the Heights. That was like a lot of controversy with that movie, right? So I see, for me and my own privilege and ignorance, right? I kind of saw it as like, okay, I understand there's maybe a lack of representation, but at least we're getting something, right? But then I heard your commentary and it kind of made me think of things in a very different perspective. So for you, kind of looking at it as a whole, what were your feelings and why did you feel the way you did?
I just felt like I feel every time that I see these type of movies or these type of productions. One, I'm sure that production overall and the director and the team overall didn't intentionally mean for things to come out of hand, for anybody to feel like they weren't included. I'm sure that that wasn't their intention. However, unfortunately, somewhat that's how it came out to be. Because when you talk about the Latino community, we're very diverse in every aspect. Colombiano, Puertorriqueño, de Guatemala, de Honduras, de Argentina. Like, there's just so much diversity. And what we really get upset about is that every time they pick the same prototype and talk about these are the Latinos. And we're like, so where the hell are we? Like, what about us? And when they do put us, which is, you know, I've always been honest, they'll put us when there's movies or soap operas of slaves, or if you're La Nana, La Chacha, you're the maid in the house, or you're the prostitute, the drug dealer. Like, you never really give us opportunities to showcase that we're intellectual, that we bring value, that we are as great as anybody else. So yes, it was very hurtful to the Afro-Latino community, because when they did put some, I believe they were like African-Americans to represent Afro-Latinos somewhat, or just to represent the diversity. And I just felt like, this is like that one chance we got. Y'all can fix this. Hopefully, if they do get a part 2 and they fix it, we are going to feel like, okay. And it's not just about us. It's just the Latino community overall. It has to be inclusive. Because even if you're not as Black as I am, you may have had a grandmother, a great-great-grandmother, an aunt, una tia, whatever. You never know. Your kids may fall in love with a woman that looks like me. Sure. Now I'm part of your family. Now I'm part of your problem too. So...
That's true. I mean, I respect, I agree with all that kind of stuff. My only concern, I guess, is sometimes if we become our own worst enemies, you know what I mean? Because it takes a lot for a big production like that, regardless of the complexion of the Latino, for them to believe in a Latin story. You know what I mean? And I get exactly what you're saying. So I guess my only fear is if we become too hypercritical of it, do we then, you know, not even able to celebrate when we're actually having a moment? You know what I mean? It's
the thing about it is that we've had too many moments. And all those moments don't include us. That's why we're upset. Like, even when you talk about every novela you've ever thought about since you were growing up, how many people like us did you see? You know, even if you look at Latinos, we don't have that many channels. I'm not going to put them out there. We have a few. And even when you look at them few, you don't see us either. So it's not just about like, we're being too sensitive or we're being too that. It's just like, we feel like, when is it going to be our turn? When is it going to be our chance? Because you still monetize from us. We still give you our coins. We're still there to support. We still do all those things. You get inspired from our swag, from our style. We bring in the trends. We bring in the sounds musically. We bring a lot of things to the table, which you guys take advantage of to a certain extent. So what do we get out of it?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, especially when you bring up the Latin TV stations, right? Because they're our own. They've had those stations for decades at this point, and they're still not correcting it. So I think you are absolutely right when you bring it up in that way, because it's like we have to start holding them accountable and not just be happy that somebody's like giving us something. You know what I mean? We can't be happy they're giving us the crumbs under the door. We want to have the whole sandwich. You know? I
get it exactly. So
I love it.
So I'll just say this.
Yeah.
I did, if for any sort of reason, I came off a little aggressive or a little, it's not aggressive, it's more passionate.
Sure.
You know, because like I said, I know that those were not the intentions. They didn't mean any harm by it, but unfortunately it came out that way. And, you know, people were upset. You know, I think that it's not that we got over it, but we're just hoping that they can do better moving forward.
Right. No, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. It is important to also hold our own accountable. You know what I'm saying? When we do get those opportunities, which is beautiful. Okay, so exactly, Amara, the podcast, when can people listen to? When do the episodes drop? I know it's available everywhere. When do the episodes drop?
All right, so exactly, Amara drops every Thursday on iHeart Radio. Shout out to my Cultura Podcast Network for believing in me, for believing in us, for giving us this opportunity in this amazing platform. Exactly, Amara. You guys can find out more information on all our social media platforms at Exactly Amara on Twitter, Instagram, and also check us out on YouTube. Así que it's going to be great, amazing. I can't wait for you guys to check it out and tune in. And also check me out at Amara La Negra ALN, Amara La Negra ALN.
Love it. Well, Amara, it's always great catching up with you. I always appreciate our conversations. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck with the podcast and everything else you're doing.
Thank you. Okay. Likewise. Thank you so much, my love. Mwah.
Absolutely.
Gang.
All right, take care. Bye. Man, big thank you to my guest this week, Amara La Negra. Make sure you go check out her podcast, man. I absolutely love her energy. Exactly, Amara. Her podcast is out everywhere right now on iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network. And also, shameless plug, while you're there, my podcast also launched this last week as well, Life as a Gringo. I'll explain what all that means in the podcast. So you can search for that everywhere you find podcasts. Go check out my new podcast. It is out right now. The first 2 episodes have already dropped, with the new ones coming every Tuesday and Thursday. And man, thank you all for the continued support. Before we get out of here, of course, as we always do, let's end on some positivity. Now, this week's positive quote comes to us from C.S. Lewis. And this is a quote that we've probably all heard 1,000,001 times, but I just thought, kind of coming out of the Jeff Bezos conversation, this was a necessary reminder. And the quote is, "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching," right? So I just feel that that's so appropriate because we have to teach people about integrity. You're allowed to have good things in this life. You're allowed to reap the benefits of all of your hard work, but it should never be at the expense of other people, especially those who are helping you get to where you want to be, all right? It doesn't matter if you're doing some sort of grandiose gesture in the public and donating something. That's all good and well. But what happens behind closed doors when the rest of us aren't able to see what's really going on? Are you really taking care of people, or are you just doing more and more things to continue to benefit yourself? And that's what we all have to continue to remember. As we all begin to achieve more things in our lives and get to enjoy more benefits from our hard work, it's important that we make sure we take care of those around us and people that we come into contact with. We treat them well and as best as we possibly could, because we're all just trying to make the best of our lives, in this crazy life. And for me personally, I have a hard time thinking about sitting atop a throne, being ultra successful while the rest of the world is burning around me. But hey, that's just me. You can't expect the same thing from everybody else, but I challenge y'all to try and adapt some of that same mindset. And with that said, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of The Recap. Of course, season 2, we out here. I'll be back next week, and I'll talk to you guys then. Stay safe. We'll see you soon. Bye.